Fanno ingresso in aula il Presidente della Camera dei Deputati.
The President of the Chamber of Deputies, Lorenzo Fontana, and the President of the Senate of our Republic, Ignazio La Russa, and the President of the Interparliamentary Union, Tulia Ackson, are entering the hall.
Prende la parola il Presidente.
The floor now goes to the President of the Chamber of Deputies, Mr. Lorenzo Fontana. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. I wish to greet the President of the Senate and the President and Honorary President of the Interparliamentary Union, the Speakers of Parliament and fellow parliamentarians, the President of the Italian Group of the Interparliamentary Union, all religious authorities. Italy's Parliament has the honor of hosting the second conference on interfaith dialogue promoted by the Interparliamentary Union. This is a follow-up after the first conference, which was held in Marrakesh, Morocco 2 years ago. At the time, the world was emerging from a pandemic. Our social relations were lacerated, and there was an increase in intolerance, especially towards ethnic minorities and religious minorities, which were increasingly the victims of violence and discrimination. The conference on interfaith dialogue gave a response which was loud and clear. It focused on the need for society to focus on a renewed relationship with a religious dimension, while at the same time it tried to heal the wounds of the pandemic. In the final Marrakesh Declaration, we underscored that a dialogue between religions is a fundamental tool to safeguard the rights and fundamental freedoms and to promote the peaceful coexistence between peoples. 2 years later, we are still in a world which is filled with social, economic, ethnic, cultural, religious divisions. It is marked by geopolitical tension. Of course, the conflicts in the Middle East, in Ukraine, and in some regions of Africa and Asia come to mind. The worsening of the crisis between Israel and Iran is, of course, a major concern. Furthermore, in many authoritarian regimes, freedom of religion is still limited. Millions of people are forced to flee from their countries of origin due to their faith. And even in the most advanced societies, there is an increase in intolerance aimed at limiting the exercise of our spiritual needs. Now, persecuting someone for their faith or stopping them from freely experiencing their religion means limiting human dignity. It means limiting the lives of individuals and communities, and therefore dialogue is essential in terms of fostering a debate, a discussion, cooperation, and a mutual understanding. And in fact, Pope Leo XIV, in his speech following his election, urged us all to build bridges through dialogue and through the encounter by joining forces and being one single people in peace. Now, in this context, the role of our parliamentary institutions is key. Our people's representation and their institutions can become a way to promote a renewed awareness, fostering a debate between the leaders of our religious communities. And therefore, my wish is that today's meeting will both be an opportunity to think upon what needs to be done, but hopefully it can also be a way of turning our dialogue into hope and turning mutual understanding into peace. Thank you.
Prende la parola il Presidente del Senato.
The floor now goes to the President of the Senate of the Republic, Mr. Ignazio La Russa. Thank you, Mr. Fontana. Thank you for hosting us today. I also wish to thank the Second Parliamentary Conference on Interfaith Dialogue. Thank you, Madam Ackson. Thank you, Mr. Casini, who is here on my right. I also wish to thank His Excellency Rino Fisichella, without whom all of this would not be possible. Now, introducing this Second Parliamentary Conference on Interfaith Dialogue is something extremely important. It is extremely relevant, and this is something that we all have to be aware of. In a world without peace, we must never lose hope. We have to be parliaments which bring together cultures, peoples, and nations. We have to believe in the hope for a fair world, a world once again in peace. Thank you again, Mr. Casini, for your unwavering commitment, for your bravery, and for your determination. Along with Mr. Casini, I also wish to thank President Tulia Ackson, Mr. Maurizio Lupi, the Chamber of Deputies, the Senate, their teams, and all those who have worked so hard to organize this important meeting. And of course, I once again wish to thank Monsignor Fisichella. 2 years after the first edition, which, as Mr. Fontana mentioned, was held in Marrakesh, the second conference on interfaith dialogue is a way of renewing and consolidating our desire to overcome a season marked by religious conflict and division, an era marked by prejudice and ideological barriers. Now more than ever, this conference is a benchmark. It represents hope for the entire world so that these words can turn into tangible actions, not just as a way of achieving hope and peace, but as a way of making sure that peace becomes something tangible. Already in 2023, the conference marked a turning point in interparliamentary cooperation, bringing around the same table representatives from over 50 countries and a number of different religions. There were, and the activities in Congress over the next few days is a highly strategic opportunity, allowing us to continue working to build peace, freedom, respect, and friendship between peoples and nations. Now more than ever, with the new and tragic tensions in the Middle East, and with the surge in hate crimes, also spurred by religion, with the unacceptable violation of human rights in many parts of the world, with the fighting in Ukraine, Israel, Iran, and so many other countries, we all have the duty of making sure that this event becomes a clear sign of hope for the future. And let me focus on the word hope. Hope is something we can build together with the awareness that human beings need to believe so that through faith they can aspire to improve every day. Catholics, Orthodox Christians, Protestants, Jews, Muslims, representatives of all faith and of all belief know that faith is a light that unites us all, despite our differences. And these differences do exist. Although together we walk in this light, together we can find a way to promote a dialogue and mutual understanding so that we can defeat hate and lay our weapons down. It won't be easy, but we do want to sit around the same table so that we can build bridges between faiths and institutions. Strong and long-lasting bridges based on mutual trust, respect, and a feeling of universal fraternity that Pope Francis and Pope Leo have placed at the very center of their pastoral commitment. And of course, the root of peace is the true meaning of humanity. It is its anthropological root, as underlined already by John Paul II and Benedict XVI. And I'm sure that Saturday, our audience with the Holy Father on the occasion of the Jubilee of Governors, as it concludes the activities of this second conference on interfaith dialogue, will certainly be a new and very emotional and highly meaningful, symbolic and spiritual event. And I'm sure that these 2 days of discussions and debate, I'm sure, will become a precious opportunity to underline how much parliamentary diplomacy and how much the Interparliamentary Union have become a crucial tool to promote dialogue and integration between worlds which are only apparently distant. So thank you once again for your precious commitment. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your dedication. Peace and justice, humanity and progress, trust and cooperation. This is the parliamentary dimension of all parliaments, which are and which will continue to be the very core of the values and ideals of all eras. And I wish all of you my most sincere and my deepest best wishes, and thank you very much for being in Italy.
Prende la parola la Presidente del
The floor now goes to the President of the Interparliamentary Union, Ms. Tulia Ackson.
Excellencies, honorable members of Parliament, esteemed religious leaders, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, dear colleagues. It is a great honor to address you today, standing on one of the lands of holiness as the President of the Global Parliament of Parliaments. I would like to thank our gracious hosts, the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate of Italy, for welcoming us to Rome. It is quite a remarkable moment for us to be here in the course of this Jubilee year, and to have the privilege to sit in your magnificent debating chamber for 2 days and meet with leaders of religions, beliefs, civil society, and international experts from around the world. This conference, dear colleagues, dear friends, provides us with an opportunity to discuss how we, as legislators, alongside all other actors of goodwill, can work together for a common future. Being also a valuable tool for peace building and diplomacy. Then, for us all, people of all religions, beliefs, and faiths are excited to attend an audience with the Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, as a way of reaffirming our united commitment to the common good. Dear colleagues, dear friends, I recognize this conference as a unique event, bringing us all together at a time when the world is facing multiple challenges, ranging from peace and security, cultural distortions, race discrimination, gender violence, belief abuses, and all sorts of instabilities and conflicts. Why are we here? The Interparliamentary Union, spearheading this conversation between national parliaments and the representatives of the global religions and belief community. In addition, why now? The Interparliamentary Union is not only the global organization of national parliaments, it is the oldest political multilateral organization in the world and has been there around for about 136 years. The IPU has seen the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the First and Second World Wars, the creation of the League of Nations and the United Nations, and the breakdown of colonialism, the emergence of modern national states, the Cold War, and every other global conflict, natural disaster, and moment of triumph and loss since 1889. Our commitment throughout all this has been to be a convener, to provide a platform for dialogue for the sake of peace, security, and for the promotion of democracy for everyone. However, dialogue cannot place in echo chambers. In addition, democracy thrives on inclusivity and vibrant exchange. The IPU's current strategy encourages parliaments to engage with their broader ecosystems, with all of the society. This is precisely what this conference aims to do. We recognize that we are facing very difficult times. Our societies are being torn apart by different crises. Conflicts are being fought both online and offline, with words and with weapons. Not only that our common future is at stake, it is our present. We must call upon coming together not just to safeguard a future for our children, but also to protect the rights and the livelihoods of our parents and peers. Parliamentarians have an essential role to play in the promotion of peaceful and inclusive societies. It is our duty to uphold the rule of law, human rights and justice through our functions our functions of representation, oversight, budgetary approval, and legislation. Recently, we have begun to speak more of a fifth function of members of parliaments, parliamentary diplomacy. This is a tool to leverage the potential of our networks and expertise beyond national borders to promote dialogue, understanding, and cooperation, and even to mediate conflicts. Representatives of religions and beliefs are important dialogue partners for parliamentarians. Religion and belief provide answers to many questions. They inform our values and give our lives a meaning. Religious leaders are people of influence, and religious organizations care for the needy and the elderly and educate our children as well. Political and religious actors may have different mandates, but we are all concerned citizens and united by shared values such as peace, respect, equality, humanity, fraternity, accountability, and compassion, as well as a commitment to working for the good of our constituents, congregants, and the broader society. Many of us here today are leaders in our communities. As our societies become more fragmented, it falls to us to be responsible guides and advocates of justice, peace, and social cohesion. Gathered here in Rome, we will seize this unique opportunity to see how dialogue can inform national policies and legislation, how we can identify avenues to uphold the equal rights and dignity for all, and how we can combat all forms of hatred and discrimination and foster social cohesion, tolerance, and understanding. Dear friends, dear colleagues, I want to express my appreciation for how far many of you have come to be here today, and to recognize your belief in the importance of talking across national, party, and religious lines, and of sharing your expertise for the common good of humankind. I would like to ask all of you here today to make 3 commitments for your time at this conference. First, be willing to listen, because in every exchange, there is a space for learning. Secondly, be willing to share so that others may benefit from the expertise in which you have invested so much. Thirdly, be ready to reach out. The pool of expertise here is exceptional. Our experts will spark your curiosity, but one short speech from the podium cannot satisfy it. I urge you all to connect with each other and draw on the wealth of talent that is gathered here today, tomorrow, and the day after. Colleagues, notably, it has become perhaps even more so in the last week, as we have watched with great sadness and concern the escalation of parliamentarians, panelists, and young people, many people working in peace in difficult circumstances, who would have wished to be with us here, but they are unable to because of what is happening in their countries. I hope their absence is going to even make us work harder so that the whole world is a better place for everyone and for each one of us as well. I want to wish you all fruitful deliberations. My greatest wish for this conference is that we can work together in a space of mutual respect and in the spirit of our common humanity. I thank you all for listening.
Prende la parola.
The floor now goes to the Secretary General of Religions for Peace, Dr. Francis Correa.
Thank you very much. Esteemed parliamentarians, eminent religious leaders, dedicated members of civil society, and all those working towards a just world, warm greetings of peace. It is a great honor to stand with you here today in this historic city during the year of Jubilee, an year to renew hope for our common future. We welcome the leadership of Pope Leo XIV as we join hands with all faiths in dialogue towards a common future anchored in peace and human dignity. Thank you to the Italian Parliament and the Italian Parliamentary Union for bringing us together, and to Mr. Lorenzo Fontana and Ignazio La Russa and Ms. Tulia Ackson for their powerful remarks that will guide our discussions during this conference. For those who may not be aware, Religions for Peace is the largest and most representative multi-faith peace-building organization in the world, bringing together all the major religious communities in the world at the global, regional, and national levels, creating a vibrant, growing, and connected global movement. For over 50 years, we have brought together thousands of diverse religious leaders and their communities to champion peace. We have worked with parliamentarians around the globe to find more innovative ways for faith and governments to not only coexist, but strengthen each other. I remember, and as an example, working with the parliamentarian leadership in my own country, Kenya, as part of the Interreligious Council of Kenya, an affiliate of Religions for Peace, to craft electoral reforms necessary to move forward elections in 2016, when our country, and I think my brothers who are here today can testify, was in deep electoral paralysis. As we undoubtedly hear throughout this conference, our world is in a dire place. Not only is the world engulfed in more wars than ever before, but we are woefully behind in meeting the global targets of the Sustainable Development Goals that anchor peace in development. Rising violent conflict, unprecedented numbers of refugees and forced migrants, the rise of climate disasters, and the imminent danger of nuclear war have put all humanity and our planet in grave danger. Many of the conflicts emanate from the delicate challenge of management of power transitions before, during, and after elections that have to be dealt with by parliamentarians. In the midst of this interwoven crisis, cooperation between the world's parliamentarians and religious leaders is more vital than ever before. Parliamentarians are the backbone of their nations. They create and uphold the rule of law and sense of justice. They serve as a bridge between the public and government. And their diplomacy and dedication to the people is foundational for any just and peaceful society, as they embody the democratic ideal of a government by the people, for the people. On the other hand, religious leaders serve as the moral ethical guides to legislation. They are trusted advisors and voices of the voiceless, and necessary dialogue partners for parliamentarians. They influence public perceptions, provide moral clarity, and inform national priorities. By championing the freedom of conscience, thought, and belief, religious leaders also act as key guardians of basic freedoms of the people. Despite working in different avenues, religious leaders and parliamentarians share a common goal for the people they serve: to create a shared flourishing for all. This shared flourishing is only possible where these two groups come together to actively champion a harmonious world for all people of all faiths and beliefs. We committed to this during the first Parliamentary Conference on Interfaith Dialogue in Marrakesh, Morocco. This coming together, led by the people in this room and elsewhere, by the parliamentarians and religious leaders dedicated to serve their people, needs to translate to quantifiable actions. We in Religions for Peace are committed to working with the International Parliamentary Union and national parliaments in creating the best multi-religious and multi-sectoral networks and partnerships, since for success, interfaith, multi-religious and multi-sectoral processes are best driven given the plurality of beliefs and non-belief in most countries. At Religions for Peace, we have seen that we can see what can be achieved when religious leaders and parliamentarians work together time and again. Additionally, on 26th of May this year, Religions for Peace, in partnership with the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, launched a call for peace, end of war, and respect of international law in Granada, Spain. We call on all parliamentarians globally to join us in this call, especially at this precarious moment, when we see the escalation of wars and the unjustified and cruel targeting of civilians and humanitarian workers in defiance to international law. The road ahead calls for a shift from consultation to co-creation, from working in parallel to true partnership, and from transactional relationships to transformational solidarity. We must trust each other and work together to defend democracy against hate and division, to promote and protect freedom of belief and practice and uphold the rights of religious minorities, to combat hatred and reject polarization. We must strengthen the trust between religions and legislative institutions, reminding all that we are striving for the same goal, a world where all people and our planet are united in working towards a shared, sacred flourishing for all. We therefore look forward to a vibrant and action-oriented final document from this conference and then follow-up for its actualization. We in Religions for Peace will continue to remain committed to collaboration for peace and human fraternity as we work towards to strengthen trust and build hope for our common future. Thank you, and God bless us all.
Prende la parola.
And we will now hear from the Archbishop, the Pro-Prefect of the Dicastery of Evangelization, who is responsible for the 2025 Jubilee, His Excellency, the Most Reverend Rino Fisichella. Honorable President of the Chamber of Deputies, Honorable President of the Senate, Most Honorable President and Secretary General of the Interparliamentary Union and President Emeritus Mr. Casini, to all of you, political, religious, and civilian authorities who are present for these study days. It is an honor for me to extend the greetings of the Holy See. There will be an audience with Pope Leo to the members of this group on Saturday morning, and we are indeed grateful, deeply grateful, for having chosen this time for your meeting. In fact, this is an important part of the Jubilee year, Interfaith Dialogue. You've chosen the title Strengthening Trust and Embracing Hope. This is a tangible sign of what can be done by policymakers. We have to strengthen the trust of citizens and the dialogue between religions, as well as all formative venues. The credibility of institutions seems to be weakening. Strengthening this trust becomes a fundamental commitment, therefore, because the cultural crisis that we are now experiencing must be overcome. And this can make this easier. Of course, we need to embrace hope in order to do this. Hope is not a utopia. Hope has a face, and hope is a person. It is something concrete. And even your engagement might become a tangible hope. No one must ever believe that his or her own personal engagement, even if it is limited and if it is played out in solitude and in silence, but one must never believe that he or she is not able to impact the social and the international dimension through their engagement. However, hope must be made tangible. There are signs that we need to reveal, because those who herald, who announce hope, must be able to see it and to touch it with their own hands. The political dimension is part of this very sign, in fact, and this is what makes it possible for us to achieve concrete outcomes in those very areas where hope is so needed and where this action is fundamental. Needless to say, we all know that we are living in dramatic times. Not tragic, because the word tragedy should not be part of our vocabulary. Where there is a tragedy, there is no hope. Where there is drama, then not only is there hope, but there are also concrete actions with which to counter the tragedies. So when we hear the missiles, when we hear innocent people crying out, then we must make the voice of politics and diplomacy louder still. And I think that universities need to be stronger in their formative activities, and it is therefore important to hear their engagement vis-à-vis peace. It is with this sentiment that I wish you a very fruitful dialogue and meeting. Thank you all for your attention. And we shall now hear from the Honorary President of the Interparliamentary Union and the President of the Italian IPU Group, Pier Ferdinando Casini. First of all, I wish to extend my thanks to the President of the Chamber of Deputies and to the President of the Senate of the Italian Republic. I thank you very much for your kind and affectionate words, and I also wish to express my thanks to the Chamber of Deputies and the Senate, to the Secretaries General, and to all their co-workers for a wonderful organization of this important meeting. Equally, I wish to extend my greetings and my thanks for having chosen Rome. I thank, therefore, the President of the Interparliamentary Union and its Secretary General as well. I believe it is very important for us to be here today. This morning, during the preparatory meeting behind closed doors, multiple religious leaders said, we cannot limit our action to voting on documents. We must speak publicly. We must make sure that everyone can hear our voices. So if this is the feeling of faith leaders, then, of course, all the more so, it must be the feeling of we members of Parliament and our leaders. We must not be afraid to remember that no war can be fought in the name of God. In this very hall, over 20 years ago, John Paul II reminded us, parliamentarians, that the religions are challenged to show their rich potential for peace by guiding the cultures and civilizations that draw inspiration from them towards mutual understanding. This is the heart of interfaith dialogue. Dear colleagues, it is not an attempt to standardize faiths, but rather an opportunity for us to acknowledge others in their dignity and to build together a peace that is not simply the absence of war, but the active presence of justice and solidarity. These are the foundations of peace, the unifying and inalienable principles that all faiths share, and that world parliaments should convert into concrete policies, thereby forging a balanced relationship between democracy as a rule of civil coexistence and religious values. We either learn to walk together in peace and in mutual respect and tolerance, or we destroy one another. These are very important words coming from afar, from the very first interfaith meeting in Assisi in 1986. And in these very days, Leo XIV, the spirit may the spirit of the risen Christ open paths of reconciliation wherever there is war. May he enlighten those who govern and give them the courage to make gestures of de-escalation and dialogue. This is what he said just a few days ago. We are here, dear friends, to say something very simple, not to illustrate or export models, but to say that we need an individual and collective effort to try to understand one another more and more, and we must not leave our children a world that is ruled by force as opposed to justice and balance principles. Force cannot be the element, the factor that is regulating the relations between and among men. And this is why interfaith dialogue means an act of faith for multilateralism and peaceful coexistence, and the ability to build up a peace which is predicated on the principles of freedom and justice. So maybe we are running counter to what is happening outside of this hall. Yes, perhaps that's what's happening, but I think that we are following the right course of action. Our ceremony has been